Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I picked up an arc of this book at BEA last year. This is a young adult fantasy story about Scarlet and Tella, who are sisters, and Scarlet has been obsessed with Caraval, which is a magical traveling performance for many, many years, and her sister live with her very ruthless, abusive father, and they are kind of trying to escape that, but Scarlet is going to be married soon in an arranged marriage. But one day, tickets for Caraval finally arrive, and everything kind of takes off from there. People have been comparing this to The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which is a very well-loved book, especially by myself, and magical circuses just tend to be pretty popular, so this has had a lot of hype since even before BEA last year. But I went into this with as realistic of expectations as I could have, because The Night Circus is my favorite book of all time, and I knew this wasn't going to be The Night Circus. And yet here I am, still really disappointed. So first off, let me talk about the world building with this book. Like I said, this book is supposed to take place in a magical circus performance, where people get to participate or just watch, and yeah, magical circus performance shenanigans. There's not really a circus. So one of the things is that you really don't get to see much of the circus. There's a few things, but honestly, it's more like a magical town, kind of, because the majority of this book takes place in the inn they're staying in, as well as a couple shops that are kind of around. There is one tent that I can think of that they went into, but overall, it's not a circus. It's not a circus. There's really not performances. You really don't get a lot of that circus feeling. And although I didn't expect the Night Circus, I did not expect the Night Circus, I still expected a circus, and this did not feel like a circus at all. At all. Like, it didn't really feel like a performance. There were really no performance-y things happening. Like I said, there was one tent, and that felt circus-y. But other than that, it's really more like a weird town island where this is taking place. It's not really a circus setting, really. There's a few circus elements just kind of like dropped in there, kind of be like, ooh, look, it's a circus. It's kind of not. Like, I don't feel like I had any sense of this world, really, and picturing anything with this. Like, with a magical circus, I want to be really picturing everything around me. There's a few things that I could remember from this that I had a pretty easy time picturing, but overall, like, I want that really immersive experience of this magical circus and, like, kind of system sensory overload type thing that would happen if you were viewing a magical circus, and I did not get that with this whatsoever. Also, there is this weird element of things kind of sounding like they're Spanish-inspired names, especially, and I didn't really get a sense of that outside of the names. Like, there isn't really any of this kind of Spanish or Latin or anything kind of flavor at all. It's just names, and that's a little weird. Like, if you're going to have these very Spanish-inspired names, numerous Spanish-inspired names, but then don't really have anything with that culture at all besides the naming system, it's a little odd. Next, let me talk about the characters. These characters were so incredibly one-dimensional and just simple and lacked development. And I'm laughing because I can't even think of a really positive thing to say. This isn't necessarily a book that I hated. I don't like it. I was disappointed in it, but it's not a book that was making me, like, actively mad. I was just so disappointed by the lack of anything with it. So, first off, we have our main character of Scarlet, and the whole thing, and the synopsis and everything, have these two sisters, and their really, really close bond. And there's a lot of themes in here about family over and over and over again. But we don't have a sense of family really being that important, besides being told over and over that it's important to these characters. We don't feel that bond, either between the sisters, really, or between other extended family members or anything like that, or other people's families that are also involved. We don't really have that. So we have that whole thing. But one of Scarlet's major motivations is supposed to be her sister, and be protecting her sister and everything. And that's like all Scarlet is. Wanting to protect her sister, but also being conflicted that her sister isn't the most important thing to her. That's it. That's it. And she believes everything she sees, always, even though the tagline for this is like, it's only a game, and everything's kind of an illusion, and blah, blah, blah. But like, everything she sees, she takes at face value over and over and over again, even though she gets told and taught with previous circumstances that everything is not as it seems, and to not take everything at face value, but she continues to do it over and over and over again. And then we have the whole love interest situation, which is so insta-love slash insta-infatuation. I don't necessarily want to call it insta-love. It's pretty quick love. Insta, I don't know. But very quick infatuation, very easy to see that this is where it's gonna go. Within the first 50 pages, they're going from being pretty much enemies or kind of antagonistic to one another to being like, ooh, his body's close to me and blah. What? Keep in mind that this guy at the beginning of the book was caught making out with her sister, Tella. So the fact that Scarlet and him like start this thing, sort of, at the very beginning of the book was the first very off-putting thing for me. I was like, wow, I got here for like sisterly bonds and I have a lack of sisterly bond and I have this weird insta-love relationship that makes no sense and your attraction to one another makes no sense and it's out of nowhere and you guys don't know each other and you're obsessed with your like going to be married thing, Scarlet. So none of this really makes sense. And then to just top it all off with characters, we have villains who have little to no motivation and are so simple, boiled down, one-dimensional characters, it makes me want to scream. Like, these are the kinds of villains that are just abusive and evil for the sake of being evil, but not in an interesting and compelling way, not nuanced at all. I do not need my villains to be sympathetic. That is not what I am saying. But I am saying that just being like, ooh, you know what would make a good villain? Somebody who beats his kids. That's it. Okay? I mean, yeah, that person's pretty evil, but like, if that's all they do, and it's like, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, I need a little more nuance and a little more complexity to my villains than just like, let's make him a child abuser. That's all. That's it. Nothing else. Okay. Like, that's really simple. And then we have some other villains in here who are the same kind of way, who have little to no motivations, or the motivations they do have don't make sense because, again, we have all these things connected to family, and there's this whole familial thing happening, and one of the other villains that I don't want to mention, but I will mention in my spoilery great video that you know is obviously coming, that he has some kind of vengeance against the family thing, but the family plot makes no sense. Like I said earlier. So yeah, the problems with the characters I have are a lack of development at all. Like, I don't really feel like any of the characters changed, really, at all, or learned much of anything at all. And they're just so simple and one-dimensional and just nothing. Blank slates. Empty jars. Nothing. Lastly, we have the plot. The one thing I will say for this book is it is an incredibly just easy to read book. I wouldn't necessarily even say that it's fast paced because I do feel like it does take some time for things to really get going, but it was really easy for me to read quickly, which was nice since I wasn't particularly enjoying it. But I did find a lot of the twists really predictable and a lot of the things that were happening just predictable, and a lot of things are just tropes within the like magical carnival genre, the very small kind of like subgenre of magical carnivals that are a thing. There's a lot of things in here that are tropes within that, and they aren't subverted or changed or made nuanced or anything. It's all just like, man, I've seen that before. And it's not even like I'm comparing it to the Night Circus, because I feel like that's something all its own. But like, just when you think of, you know, the fantastical circus and the, like, ringleader guy in charge who's kind of like Willy Wonka, sinister, kind of that kind of thing. A lot of those beats you have in a lot of these stories happen in here and are very similar and aren't changed or made original at all. Also, I found the writing in this book to be immature, for lack of a better term. I feel like this book would have worked really well as a middle grade, and I feel like it was written in a more middle grade style. Not to say that it's a bad style, but just that it was written in a way that just feels middle grade to me, and I wish I could explain it more, but middle grade to me sometimes feels like you're just kind of thrown in to a world that's just very bright and things just are the way they are, and it's just like a not dumbed down, because I don't think middle grade is dumbed down, but like it's a different writing style if you're familiar with middle grade versus YA. And then I feel like it was made to be a YA when it didn't need to be. It could have been a really great middle grade story, the kids could have been a little bit younger, and there didn't need to be a romance element at all. I feel like it would have worked really well if they actually were just friends and weren't made into romantic interests. So I just feel like a lot of the elements of it, as far as the writing style, felt very, very much like middle grade, which was a little bit jarring because this wasn't supposed to be a middle grade story. And I found the writing to be kind of trying too hard in a lot of ways, like trying too hard to be flowery. And I love me some flowery writing. I like that like magical realism, flowery purple writing. I'm into that. And this tried to be that, but didn't really work because there's a lot of things with color in here. So one of the things, this isn't really a spoiler because it doesn't end up mattering at all, Scarlet sees colors tied to emotions. But it's used just for like writing and description, like it's just used as like a writing tool. And so we have her being like, this is the color of this and this. You know, so color is used to infer like emotions or something. It just makes no sense. There's too much of it. Like, I'm okay with that occasionally in these kinds of like metaphors and stuff, but like all the time it's too much and it was unnecessary and it was just jarring. Like it didn't work, and it was trying so hard to work and it just didn't. We also have that element of writing that I hate, where you have people being told things or inferring things from other characters that they shouldn't know. Like, she would say things about like, oh, someone's smile revealed this thing about what they were thinking, you know, in their own heads. And it's like, you wouldn't be able to know that just by how they're acting, or their smile, or the way their eyes cut to the side. Like, you couldn't infer that much information from it, you know? So I just feel like the writing in here was really poor. Like, it was very easy to read, but it just wasn't very good, in my opinion. Like I said, it was predictable, and it was trying really hard to be beautiful, and I feel like that failed because it was trying so hard. I think that Stephanie Garber's writing could have been really just great if it was just normal and trying not to be this like pretty elevated, magical, whimsical writing. Like, you can't fake magical, whimsical writing. Like, you just have to be that way. You can't like really train yourself to be that way. I feel like that would be incredibly difficult, and that's what felt like it was being attempted, and it just didn't work. Just a lot of things about this, for me, didn't work. And then we have a continuation. This is going to be a series, and it doesn't need to be a series at all. It doesn't need to be a series at all. This could be a standalone. It does not need to be a series. So I was already just very much done by the time I got to the end of the book, and then I was like, oh, there's more, which I will obviously not be reading. So, as you can probably tell, I couldn't really find anything redeemable about this book besides it being really incredibly easy to read. It's not necessarily a book that's problematic or horrible, even. It just fails to execute what it promised, and that is why it was so disappointing to me, because it just missed the mark again and again with the world building, with the characters, with the character development, with the plot, with the writing. Like, it just missed the mark completely for me, so much so that I couldn't even find something that was good, really, about it. It just failed for me over and over again. So, as is probably obvious, I gave Caraval 1 out of 5 stars. I'm going to be doing a spoilery gripe on this, so I will link that on the screen if you guys want more of my in-depth thoughts and what exactly I had a problem with in all of those different areas. I'll be outlining that in detail. So if you are interested in hearing all of my in-depth spoilery thoughts, go ahead and check that out. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of Caraval. I know a lot of people are loving it. I just didn't, and that's okay. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all you guys soon. Bye!